All right, you're going to hear. Okay, so tomorrow, in fact, all the people are listening. We've got our summit tomorrow. So make sure you're there. We're going to have a great time. The reason I'm bringing that up is I'm just going to give you a thought. I want this right. Easy times produce weak people. Hard times produce strong people. And there's a lot of different ways to say this. In fact, even in my journal, let me grab it. There's another way I even wrote it down, but it's not even a criticism. It's just what happens. It's because the ease of life makes it to where it's easy to hide. That's the other thing I actually wrote down. Let me tell you what I wrote down. Tomorrow I'm going to spend some time. I was writing some stuff about what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, but at the summit. But I wrote down easy times, it's easy to hide. Hard times, it's hard to basically disappear. So if you start thinking about that, just again, easy times makes it easy to hide. Hard times makes it very hard to hide or very difficult to hide. You'll say, well, what do you mean by the way that we hide? And I just want each of us to recognize that so much of what we do, in fact, I'll write that up there too. I want to write that up. Easy times makes it easy to hide. Hard times makes it hard to hide. When things are easy, it's really easy to hide. And the challenge is that, I mean, and let's just be in fairness, I mean, look at the parking lot. It's really easy to hide when it's really, really easy times. But it's really hard to hide when it is hard times. And the thing that is needed right now, and I'm going to talk a lot about this tomorrow, but as we know, there's the masculine and there is the feminine. And the thing I'm most talking about is energy. I'm not talking about transgender. I'm not talking about sexuality. I'm not talking about gender identification. I'm talking about the idea of the masculine energy and the feminine energy. Now, the one thing that is interesting about that is that the masculine in today's world, in today's business world, this is specific to business as a general statement is done in the masculine. And I've often just talked about this, you've seen this before, Brenda Lee, but I've talked about the fact of this spectrum of leadership. And within that leadership, and make sure I'm clear before I say this, masculine and feminine, both needed. In fact, when there isn't a polarity, which people will talk about, or we're depolarized, that's a really bad thing. When you look, and I'm specifically talking business. Maybe tomorrow I'll get into the dynamics of relationship. But what is fascinating to me is what is needed in today's market. What is needed in today's business world? Well, let me just write this up here. What's needed right now is clarity, direction, purpose, and all of that woven with integrity. So here's the thing. My observation is that I can get highly irritated when there's a lack of clarity, direction, and purpose. That's my masculine energy. However, usually on this side, I'm always writing words like they're direct, they're specific. It might even be in your face. And I'll say on this side, now the thing is, if I'm always on that side of the spectrum of direct, tough, intense, very purposeful, very clear, very vocal, very direct, That's the masculine energy, good or bad. That's just what it is. And the problem right now is that when people are lacking clarity, they're distracted and not directed, and they lack purpose. In today's marketplace, that is highly toxic. And the challenge is that when we talk about there, and there's this little cliche or this little quip that keeps me, that toxic masculine energy. And the challenge is that what we're finding, you can look at all the stats. So Brenda Lee, they're talking about that the feminine has said, you know what? Screw it. I can't even count on what guys are going to do. And I'm saying guys like actual men, because they are lacking clarity, they're lacking purpose, they're lacking direction. And when that is lacking, people step up and go, you know what? Enough. And what's happening, I look at all three of my daughters, Brenda Lee. I mean, Bella, Ashley, and Kenzie are like a laser of focus. And what is fascinating to me is that is not as necessarily the case with my two sons. And you may say, well, how is that even possible in your household? It's possible, because I'm telling you, the world is trying to say, hey, you need to be more in the feminine, which is more nurturing, more kind, more gentle, more simple, or not simple, more gentle, kind, playful. And again, it's not good or bad. None of it's good or bad. It's just the fact that playful, gentle, kind, nurturing is not clarity, direction, purpose, and woven with integrity. And so the challenge is that every single human being, it doesn't matter whether it's a same-sex relationship, doesn't matter whether it's a marriage, doesn't matter whether it's two lovers, two partners, there is someone who takes on the feminine, there is someone who takes on the masculine. It has nothing to do with gender identity. It is purely energy. And so the question you have to ask yourself, if the masculine energy today is about direction, specifics, clarity, purpose, achievement, accomplishment, that's not the feminine energy. And that's not a good or bad. It's just not. The feminine energy, again, is playful, nurturing, loving, giving, kind, gentle. And that's beautiful. Now, here's the deal. The person who's capable of weaving back and forth between their feminine and their masculine is the person who will lead the most people. But I can tell you that when let's just say a general is speaking to the troops, he's not sitting there as a general statement, nurturing, kind, and loving, and playful, and just having a good old time. That's not what he's doing, right? It's not what she's doing. What they're doing is they're very direct, they're very specific. And here's the problem, right? If you're a woman or a man, and you're on the side of the masculine energy, and if you don't have any level of nurturing or any level of playfulness or any compassion or any sympathy, then the problem is whether you're a man or woman, you might be called a B if you're a woman, and you'll be a jackass if you're a guy. That's just what they'll call you, because you lack the feminine side: compassion, empathy, sympathy, loving, nurturing, kind, gentle. So, and the thing is that the question is that when you become aware of this and you're conscious of it, you start to realize, wait a second here. So now this is what's interesting. There is what you see happening. There's people who have a rage. There's people who are toxic. Well, right now you're seeing a lot of that. And I have to tell you, good or the real bad part of that is that when the masculine and someone who needs to express their masculine doesn't have clarity, direction, purpose, and integrity, the interesting thing is they still have all that emotion. And this is where, when you see the raging or the toxicity, and they talk about this masculine toxicity, what I would relate it to, and this is, this comes from psychologists, and this comes from some of the most well-educated people on earth in regards to this, is that what happens is they have to vent that. And that is unfortunately where you see people out killing people and doing some really, really bad stuff, because they take all of that energy and they crack because they rage and they have toxicity, because this is the key point, because they don't have clarity, direction, and purpose. So anyone who does not have clarity, direction, and purpose, I don't care whether you're male or female. What I care about is that it is required. And one of the things I've reflected back on is, why do I do what I do? Why is it? I had a meeting last week where, man, it was intense with my leadership team. It was hell, fire, brimstone. Like, this is where we're going to plant our flag. And the thing that's interesting about that, you were there, Bob, right? Little hellfire, brimstone. Do you think it was clear?
Yes.
Was it concise?
Yes.
Was it direct?
It was.
And the point is that now here's the thing, the interesting part about this. I did that, Bob, and then I had a chance to visit with my coach, and he's retired. He's a former social worker and psychiatrist, and he's retired. Yeah, right. And he's retired. And we were talking about this, and I said, man, and I have some people, Bob, and you're not one of them, so this is good, that I'm highly frustrated with. And he said, oh, anyone who has a high level of masculine energy is going to be incredibly irritated by people who lack what?
Clarity, direction.
Exactly. And Aubrey, so many of the listings I've taken in my lifetime, or lending, when I was doing lending, it had nothing to do almost with what I was saying, but I would say to them, may I ask you, why did you decide to list with me? Why did you decide to do a loan with me? And it would always be this, because we believe that you believe you can get it done. Well, I didn't understand in my early 20s when I started asking those questions, or late 20s when I started asking those questions. But what it was is that I come typically in my life, especially in business, with a serious level of certainty around my purpose, my direction, and my clarity. And so people want to follow those people who are clear, concise, directing. So certainty, even though it doesn't even look like certainty, Bob's squinting his eyes over here, but certainty, that I'm certain that's where we're going. I'm certainly clear as to where I'm going. I have a purpose to what I'm doing. Like this morning, I looked up at the sky and said, man, find the one who needs my help. And the thing that we find is that when you are in a toxic energy, when you feel like raging and you're angry, I can promise you it's because you lack clarity, purpose, and direction. You have no certainty around that. So you have to, the reason why I'm obsessed with knowing where I'm going is because the toxicity is off the chart for me. Again, it doesn't matter what gender you are. What matters is, are you capable of weaving the right energy at the right time? There are times that I have to be compassionate, right? I don't need, if someone comes in and they have a major loss in their family or a loved one passes away, that is not the time to be direct. However, when people are often in their most difficult moments, Bob, they come to my office because what do they want? What do they want to get? What do they want?
Clarity, direction, and purpose.
Clarity, direction, and purpose. And they know that I'll help them get that, because we're not going to walk out without it. We want to know, what mountain are we going to plant the flag in? Where are we all going? And so the thing that is interesting to me is that even in my own relationship, I don't know, let's just say the last couple of years, where I would say Jennifer and I have had so much personal growth within our relationship. There'd be times where Jennifer, Aubrey would go, I'm concerned. And you know what she would say? What are you concerned? She goes, well, I don't know. Like, what are you doing? Where are you going? When I started reformulating, Brenda Lee, like my life, like selling off California, reducing the footprint of the company, being able to be here in the morning meetings, be able to see every single day my grandchild every day. In fact, actually, I said, I don't see him enough. And Kenzie last night goes, you see him every day. I go, that's not enough. Like, he's just like, I'm addicted to him. Right. And I restructured my life so that but here's the thing. I was in a state, Brenda Lee, when you're trying to restructure, let's just talk about it. Do you think Michael Jordan, the greatest, what I believe to be the greatest basketball player ever, do you believe that? Or do you think it's LeBron?
It's LeBron.
Really?
100%.
All right. I don't know.
1,000%.
Oh my gosh.
There's
I'm
no
not
way.
even- are you serious?
I love Jordan. I mean, he's like, I would say they're probably neck and neck, but right now,
Oh, okay,
Ah.
so always.
but right now, I mean, LeBron has he still has a career. That's the thing.
This is true.
That's it.
I always
But-
wonder what Jordan would have done if he would have.
Yeah, if he would
If he would have had the longevity of
Yeah.
like what he. Okay. Anyway. So,
yeah.
okay. Let's go to a. Let's give two examples. So Michael Jordan shows up on the basketball court. Aubrey, do you believe that he believes, or take a Stephen Curry? Do you believe that every time he took a shot, do you believe he was going to make it?
Yeah.
Do you think he believes that?
Yes.
It doesn't mean it did. Because this is important. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to be right to be certain. Man, when people figure that out, you can create clarity, direction, and purpose and be completely wrong. But I can tell you, man, you could literally lead people off a cliff because of that certainty, that perspective of clarity, purpose, and direction. That masculine energy is so strong, and people want clarity, so they follow it. So there's a great stewardship. But let's go back to Jordan. So when Jordan would take a shot, he believed. So in the games, when did Jordan become, this is important, when do you think Jordan became uncertain? When did he become uncertain? I'm not talking about for a lifetime,
Maybe
just in segments of his life. When would he have become uncertain?
a loss, maybe, I don't know.
Good, absolutely, for a loss. Because then he starts, when we're uncertain, we start doing this, we start asking questions, right? Especially we start questioning, but the more important, he would do it when, do you think he was uncertain when he, to gain his certainty back, he would go into the film room and look at what? Look at past games to figure out what was wrong so he could have more clarity, direction, and purpose. And so he knew exactly what to do, what time, next time, right?
Yes.
So he got certain. So when he was in practice, do you think that was the time to test certain things? Try new things, offer new opportunities, defend differently? The triangle that they all did with Pippen and the center, all of it. That's when they became uncertain. So it's not that you can't ever have any uncertainty. It's not that you can't ever ask a question, but you're asking them so that you can get more clarity, direction, and purpose. And I'm telling you, if you can show up in life that way, then I promise you, you'll do more loans, you'll do more deals, you'll get more elite, you'll get more commercial stuff. That's what will happen. So the thing is, it's not that you can't ever be uncertain, but in the moments of uncertainty, be very cautious and aware as to where you're being uncertain. Because in today, business is done in the masculine, not because you're a guy. No, the energy is in the masculine. It is about achievement, accomplishment, driving a process, sticking to the disciplines. I don't want that in my relationship of me and Jennifer. I want her playfulness. I want her laughter. I want her joy. I want her craziness. I want her fun. That's not where business is done. Now, can you weave into that? Sure. I want Jennifer's compassion, her empathy, her sympathy. And by the way, you're going to get exactly what you want. I can tell you, I know I have a very strong masculine energy. So on the opposite of that, what is Jennifer? She's a very strong what? Feminine energy. And I can tell you, want to talk about us getting depolarized? If she gets masculine and I'm masculine, and all of a sudden we're depolarized. And the thing that is also interesting, when I was uncertain, saying, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, all of a sudden I was in this place of questioning. I was in this place of uncertainty. I was in this state of trying to figure it out. So there wasn't clarity, direction, and purpose, except for, Brenda Lee, I was like, I am certain I'll figure it out. I am certain I'm going to ask myself enough questions to get it figured out. And people would say, what are you doing? And my answer was always this, Aubrey, I'm just trying to figure out how I want to live my life. And they'd be like, huh? Yeah, I'm just figuring out how I want to live my life for the next 50 years. Figure I'm going to hopefully live to 100. So I got 50 more. I want to make sure this is the right path. And that freaked people out because I wasn't down my normal clarity, purpose, direction. And people all the time still coming, you've changed. I said, I hope so. I go, I don't know if it's for the better or not for you, but it's better for me because I have more clarity, purpose, and direction. I have a much more firmer focus on what I want my life to look like. And as I wrote in my journal today, I wrote down in the very middle of it in big bold letters, freedom. I care about freedom. And everybody does. I don't care whether you're a fly or a spider or a deer or a turtle or a human being, you want freedom. And so for me, that is what I want to plant always on the top of a mountain is my own personal freedom, my ability to choose, my ability to decide, my ability to create my own clarity, my own direction, my own purpose, and not someone else's. So again, just as you start looking at how are you showing up, what energy is showing up in business? And if you don't have clarity, purpose, direction, and then the last part, I forgot about this, but all of this is woven with a ton, I did say it, truth and integrity. In business, Dave, do you think people want truth? Do you think they want, like even John, that guy you worked with, we freed, do you think he wanted do you think Rick wanted someone who was honest,
Absolutely.
truthful? Did he want your direction? Did he need your clarity? That's how it works. And when everything's working right, that's what you're doing. And the problem is that if we walk in with a feminine energy, meaning carefree, undirected, playful, and you say, well, is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. It's wrong at the certain times. It's wrong when people need clarity, direction, and purpose. And again, I just want to remind you, if you come and you're always like that with no compassion, playfulness, no gentleness, kindness, people are like, well, I'm not hanging out with that guy. He's a, you know what? And the same thing, if it was a woman, they'd say, my gosh, look at her. She is so ruthless. She is so mean. She is cruel because you're always in that masculine. So the issue is that, yes, you have to weave. But if you understand that the masculine energy in today's business world is clarity, direction, and purpose, when you do that, people will be attracted to that. People want to work with that. People want to do loans with that. People want to list with that. People want to buy with that because that's what they want. They hire you so that there is clarity, there is direction, there is certainty, there is confidence. Those are not what I'm expecting from the feminine. That's just not. And you can say, well, wait, I'll debate this all day long with anyone who wants to debate it. Because it's not about, again, Jen, I said this again, I just want to reiterate, because I know people are coming and going online. It is not about your gender. It is about the energy that's flowing to you. And you see this in even marriages and partnerships. You see sometimes the male is very feminine, whereas the female is very masculine. It's not about the whether or not what gender you are. It's about the energy. And hey, if that's what makes the relationship tick for that couple, great. But when we're talking about business, if you show up playful, nurturing, compassion, all over the place, and you say, well, is that? No, I love it when Jennifer is all over the place. Really, I do. And she tethers to that direction, that clarity, that certainty, and she tethers to it and she plays. But that's not what's business is needed, right? That's not what's needed in business. And the problem is people are playing, people are laughing, people are, showing some compassion, sympathy. They're erratic. They're all over the place. And you say, well, is that bad? No, only when it's done in the wrong spot. Only in the wrong environment, only in the wrong moment. But if you get clear and concise and direct, you begin to realize that all business is done in the energy of masculine. It has nothing, again, to do whether you're a boy or a girl. There's no right or wrong. It's what energy do you choose? And how do you choose to direct this? There's so much more on this tomorrow that I'm going to talk about. We're going to talk about really all of the things that describe a masculine energy, all of the things that describe that feminine energy, all of what's needed. And by the way, when you go to a doctor, it doesn't matter whether it's male or female. My doctor is female. It's one of Ruby's best friends, childhood friends. I'm not looking for her. You know what I love about her? I've actually said this. Apparently, I've said, I love how fierce she is. I love that she debates with me. I love that she's not intimidated by my masculine energy. And she fights me. And she puts me in my place. And she gives me what? She is an awesome doctor. She gives me what? Clarity, direction, and I don't know, purpose, but she certainly gives me direction and clarity. Like, this is what you're doing. I remember when I sat down with her and the first time I doctored her, she goes, George, you just turned 50. I care about one thing. I don't care about your testosterone levels. I don't care about how strong you, I care about one organ in your body. You know what it was? Your heart. And she goes, and everything we'll ever talk about is your heart. And I'm like, whoa, cool. I'm serious. I was like, whoa. And she gave me clarity, direction. And so do you know what I always, because she gave me clarity, direction, and purpose. My purpose is to make sure I'm doing what? To protect my heart. Wow. Hence, I've lost 60 pounds over the, or 50 pounds over, I like 60 though, 60 is even better, but 52 to be exact, over the last, what are we, we're in the 8th month, in the last 8 months, because she gave me clarity, direction, and she was a female.
Like Elizabeth King.
Yeah, she's fierce.
She is fierce.
Brutal. Hence, that's a good example is she's so brutal, so fierce, so directing, so controlling, so dominating that people think she's cruel, mean. This is this nutritionist that we've gone to. She's ruthless, Aubrey.
She's awesome. She tells you just.
Oh my gosh. You want to talk about controlling, dominant, you know, over the top masculine in her energy as a female? Holy cow.
It was crazy. Like, take your shoes off, get your sock. Where's your socks? Okay. Well,
Don't put your hand in your pocket.
Yeah,
Don't chew
touch
gum.
this, don't do that.
Oh gosh. Like if you were chewing gum, Aubrey, she'd like, give me your gum, and you'd spit it into her hand, Bob.
If I had
Like this woman is
Yeah.
like crazy cuckoo masculine energy.
crazy. I have fingernails. She goes, get those off. Get those things off your fingers.
Oh yeah.
Like crazy.
Yeah, you'd walk out thinking after it's all done, you're dying. You're gonna die today. Today is your last day on earth. You should be ashamed of how you treated your body. I mean, brutal.
Literally.
Like you talk, but clarity.
But we went back.
But clarity, because I like the clarity, direction, and purpose.
Yeah.
Right? How dominant, how intense, how direct she was. Maybe like, whoa, I'm following this. And by the way, some people, because she didn't have enough of the nurturing, enough of the kindness, compassion, love, they went, well, screw you. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You know, bleep you.
Yeah.
Literally.
I do need to make a comment. I have rheumatoid arthritis and I went to my doctor, and when I go to my doctor, I'm pretty in the masculine. It's like, hey, this is business. Figure this out. What are we doing?
Right.
And when my doctor said to me, well, what do you want to do? Because I want to get off my medication. I'm like, what am I going to do? All they want to do is pump you
Sure.
in with medication. I want to figure out some more holistic way to get better. And when she looked at me and said, well, what do you want to do? I lost all respect and everything changed, because she wasn't giving me clarity, direction, and purpose. Clarity and direction. I'm just like, you, the professional, asking me what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold the phone here. That's why our clients say, you know, they want us to tell them. The last thing you want to ask your client is, well, what would you like to do?
Especially, yeah.
It's like they lose all
When
respect.
when I'm working with my attorney or attorneys, but let's just say one, Eric Christiansen, I don't say, hey, share with me, or I don't ask him, to your point, he doesn't ask me what we, well, he actually, you know what, depends on,
Well, it's kind of a
hold on,
different situation.
but I'm not asking him, or he's not asking me, how do I do this? He's more asking what I want to
What
do.
you want.
If I want to sue someone, or if I want to back, whatever it may be, but then I'm not sitting there going, okay, well, can you tell me how to do this? I mean, fairness, right? A good example would be lending. People don't want to know, Bob, if you didn't know this already, which I know you do. No one wants to know how loans are done.
No.
They just want the loan done.
Yeah. Just
I mean,
get
do you want to know how every loan's done? Do you care?
Be nice to know,
Some
I guess,
people
but not
Do you
really.
really care how a loan gets done, Dave?
analytical.
The right person driving it.
Right, as long as you have belief and confidence in their clarity, direction, and the purposes that they're doing, and it dripping with truth and integrity, you're like, hey, I'll see you at closing.
Yeah.
I'm not interested, but when people are, I can just tell you, in lending, when people are unclear, like I can look at my own son-in-law. He went through a little period of time of some uncertainty, didn't know what to say, didn't quite know how to handle a few things. It wasn't that he was great. You were there a little bit along the way with him, Bob. It wasn't that he's not a good dude. It's not that he doesn't love people. It's not that he's not honest. He just didn't have clarity, direction, and purpose because he didn't even know the answer himself early on.
You don't know.
So then people said, well, he doesn't know what he's doing. No, he does. So what did he do? How did he get more clarity, direction, and purpose in a deal? Oh, well, he goes to people like Bob and to Christopher and realized he needed to be more resourceful so that he could stand in that confidence. That's what you do. So even if you don't have the clarity, direction, and purpose, what can you attach to? When I was a new licensee, Aubrey, I would say, man, I don't know if I know the answer, but I'll tell you what I have clarity and purpose and direction on, like absolute confidence on, is I can get the answer from a gal by the name, remember Trudy Stark? Anyway, she was my broker and I knew I could get the answers from Trudy.
Yeah.
So I could say, Bob, you know, that's a great question. I don't know the answer yet, but I'll tell you this, I'll have it within the hour.
Yeah.
And I could have clarity, purpose, and direction on that. Not, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, that's a tough question, Bob. I mean,
Right.
So again, the business world needs purpose, clarity, and direction. By the way, one last thing, and we've got to go. But this last thing is, if you want to confront people, you have to know what they want. And I should say, I'm gonna put here, effectively confront people. If you want to effectively confront people, you have to know what they want. Teenagers are great. I can just go beat the crap out of a teenager, right? In the sense of telling them all these things. Like yesterday, I was teaching a bunch of them. But the thing is that I cannot effectively confront them if I don't know what they want. And so I had them raise their hand. I said, Dave, how many of you, there's about 15 of them in this room. I said, how many of you want to be happy? And then I said, well, what makes you happy? Of course, all of them raised their hand because I wanted to confront them, Dave. Do you want to be happy? And there's a few in there that you can tell really struggle with the mental side, the emotional side, their happiness, their joy. I mean, really you can feel the heaviness and the darkness of some of these young people. And you're like, wow. I'm like, so how many of you want to be? Okay, how do you, and then I went around, how do you consistently stay happy? Of course, they talked about things they do, people they're with. And so my thinking, well, if you're not with those people, how do you get happy? If you're not doing that, like I said, what's your favorite thing to do? Someone said video games, some said basketball, some said reading, right? And I said, well, what if you're not reading? Can you be happy? What if you're not playing basketball? Can you be happy? What if you're not with those people? What if you're not playing video games? Can you be happy? And they kind of like, so what does happiness have to do with? And we went through this whole thing to where a clarity and a purpose and direction as to how to simply be happy. And the happiness, I really firmly believe, starts with just simply one thing, a decision that you're going to be. Has nothing to do with what you're doing, who you're with, has nothing. And the problem is that people are shaped by their environments and their culture. And the thing is, when we're shaped by our environment and our culture, some of the things we do don't align with the realities of being happy. So the whole point was yesterday was for me to get these young people to have clarity and direction on one thing, how to be what? Happy. Because everything around you is trying to make you not. Whether it's the news, what other people say, what other people do, social media, deals falling apart, challenges in the market, higher interest rates, mortgage programs, inventory, certain deals not coming together. I mean, the list goes on and on of all the things that are trying to make you unhappy. So does everything on the outside of you have to not make you happy? Can you make a decision that no matter what's going on, I choose to be happy? And the answer is you can be, but you have to make a choice to do so. Once you decide, then you cut off every other option, as I talked about. But I was giving clarity, direction, and getting a group of people to go, whoa, And 2 or 3 of them after, or 3 or 4 of them actually, after it came and said, it came up to me and went, oh, like gave me kind of, they're like, that was crazy cool. And the whole point is why it was cool is I guarantee you this morning, some of them will remember, oh yeah, that's right. School starts next week for most kids across the valley, right? And oh yeah, I'm going to be happy.
Do you teach them every week?
No, every other week.
Every other week you're with them?
Yeah.
That same group?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I enjoy it a lot. And then and Bella and Ethan are in there. So that makes it really cool. And then I made Isaac come in too. He's like, wow. I'm like, I don't care if you're 21 next week. Get in there. Because frankly, I wanted to talk to him too, but it's more fun to talk to them. And by the way, he was the one who came up with, he actually raised his hand and said, well, you have to choose to be. And I'm like, hello.
He's listening.
Right? He was the one who actually said you have to decide to be happy. But the point is that again, with 12, 13, 14, 15 or whatever it was, these 16, 17, 18-year-olds, the decision of clarity, purpose, direction, certainty behind the idea, I choose to be happy. And the point is that that's what this business needs. And the problem is that when people lack clarity and purpose and direction, they will not be followed. Even the feminine energy won't follow it. They just won't. They won't decide. They won't sign contracts. It's critical to be in the masculine energy to get things done. It's about achievement, accomplishment. By the way, why a lot of people don't like them, you want to read about masculine energy? Read Stoicism, read Marcus Aurelius, read Epictetus, read the letters from Seneca, read about Socrates, read about Plato. You may say, why? Because they literally dripped, literally covered in an ocean of masculine energy. Because masculine energy is about logic. It's not about the emotion. It's about precision. It's about integrity. And the Stoics knew that. So you want to learn about masculine energy, just read Stoicism. It's all in the masculine. It's not about the feminine at all. And that isn't, again, there's no right or wrong, good or bad. It's just what is business needed in business today. And I'm telling you, it is needed to be in the masculine. Did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, it's kind of a tangent on like when you talk about it first. So easy times produce weak people and hard times produce strong people. So, and also I like that second part too, the hard times. It's easier to hide.
Oh, it's easy to hide.
It's hard to hide, when hard times are happening, it's hard to hide that.
Yeah.
For sure. And I feel that a lot of the times I had a super hard life. I'm not saying I had the hardest life, but
right.
But I knew I didn't want to be that. In this, there's a cycle with my family, with my friends, and I was like, yeah, it was funny because I did not want that for my family, for my life, for my son, my wife. It's like, okay, well, what can I do right now to make not necessarily my life hard, but what hard things can I do to get out
overcome?
of this? Yeah,
to not repeat history.
Exactly.
And by the way, Aubrey, yesterday I said when I was talking about what impacts you, and they said, well, and then someone said, well, but what makes you change? And I said, you have to be awake.
No.
And I said, it doesn't matter. I don't care whether you're looking at Buddha was asked, what's the purpose of my life? He said basically to wake up. Deepak Chopra talks, he says to be a conscious observer. And if you look at other books of scripture, it's remember, arise and awake, wake the freak up. Conscious, aware, mindful, conscious observer. I love what Deepak says. I'm going to be a conscious observer. Well, then if you're a conscious observer, you won't repeat history when it's not what you want. When you are in an environment because your parents did this or your friends did that or a sibling did this or someone abused you, someone hurt you, someone did bad things or you're bad. When you're awake, then all of a sudden, Aubrey, you say, hold on, I'm not going down that path. I know what I'm going to do, and that will evolve. You'll get more clear. You'll get more direction. You'll get more purposeful. You'll weave more certainty and truth into, and this web of masculine energy go, take the mountain. That's what will happen. And then all of a sudden, yes, can you come back and be nurturing, playful, compassionate along the way? Yes. Just like the great general after a battle Do you think after the battle, he's still yelling and screaming at his troops when there was losses and hurt and damage and wounds? No. The great general still then comes and walks around, shakes the hands, gives hugs, and is nurturing during those difficult times of death or destruction. But in the heat of battle, when they're like, we're taking this mountain, it is all about direction, purpose, clarity. Bam, that's where we're going. And the problem is that in business, if you lack clarity and you lack purpose and you lack direction, no one will follow you. But you want people to follow? Get clear on where you're going. Get clear on where you're taking them. Get clear on the price. Get clear on what you do to sell a house. Get clear on how you help someone buy a house, and they will be gravitating to that. But again, in the midst of that, you may have to show some compassion, maybe a little bit of empathy, a tremendous amount of love and appreciation and gentleness and kindness. And if you are conscious, you'll know what energy is needed at the time. It will naturally flow out of you, and you will keep that polarity even with a client. When they know you need to be firm, you're firm. When they know that they need your gentleness, then you're gentle. And that's why you have to do this, because it's about who you become. It's about what you're being. That's if you want to succeed, that's what you have to do. Okay. Any thoughts or other comments online or in the room? Anybody?
Well, what resonated with me when you said you had Eli in the room, and he's like, you need to choose. When my kids were growing up, I had the fortunate opportunity to read Zig Ziglar when I was little, and Robert Kiyosaki. I got those tapes, and I watched Tony Robbins. So even as a young parent with 2 little boys, I'd always say, it's your choice, it's your decision. And we read positive affirmations.
Yes.
Even when they didn't want to, I'm like, I love my family, I love my family. We're like yelling at each other. I'm like, I love my life, I love my life. And it was so interesting that I'd always say, your attitude, 90% is your attitude, 10% is what's happening. So I'd always, even though they didn't really understand numbers, and I remember they were outside playing, and I'm just watching them, and they were kind of arguing and fighting, and then one fell off his skateboard or something, and he's crying, and I went out to help, and the older one goes, remember, it's 90% of what, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're listening.
But
90% is our choice.
Yes, and what's so cool is because they became clear, then they even helped others become clear.
Yeah. So here's the older one helping the little one. I'm like, yes. So it starts with us, and then it just resonates out. So I'm so grateful everything I've learned here that I can take to my friends and family.
Oh yeah.
So it's awesome.
Vice versa.
Yeah.
I believe, and I talked about this, Bob was in the room, I was talking about this refuge that this place is. It's a healing, it's an education, it's all of these different things as we maneuver through this process. And I always say real estate, that's the easy part. Selling real estate, that's not the hard part. Doing loans, not the part of refinement of who you have to be to do a certain amount of business is the most important work that any of us will do in this room and online. That's it. And you've heard the Denzel Washington. If you haven't, you should. It's a great talk where he gives you, you don't see U-Hauls, behind the hearses, because you're not taking one thing with you. And if you have an eternal perspective to your life, man, who you become. And then if you don't have an eternal perspective, I can live with that. Then the better question might be, what are you leaving behind? What is the impact of what you leave behind? And I'm telling you, that has everything to do with who you've become. So if there's an eternal or even a mortal idea to what you pursue, just remember what you either leave behind or what you take with you is a really important thought in the becoming. Okay. All right, let's roll. All right.